You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. I'm Samson Ladiayanini, and we're ready to get into an analysis of the major stories that made the headlines in the course of the week. My guest, Abdul Malik Kubaka Jr., he's the resident panelist. He's been on break for a while, and most of you have been asking where he was. Now, here you have him. Good morning, Abdul Malik, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, my brother.
It's always good to have you on the show. Also, Ameto Kwame. He is a communications consultant to the NHIA. You have known him on this platform before. He used to do the show almost every weekend as an editor of the newspaper, the Ghana Palava. Great. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Good. Refreshing to have you back on the show. Let's see how it goes. I've seen that you've brought documents that may attempt to equal what Abdul Malik Kubako has brought for the show this morning. Also, Samuel George. Okay, Samuel George. He is part of government's communications team. A presidential staffer. Okay, a presidential staffer. Thank you and welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure.
Nana Akomia is communications director of the New Patriotic Party. He is also within the premises. Thank you very much. My camera is changed and I was looking the wrong way. Right. This show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, welcome to the new world. Star Assurance, that is your solid partner. And of course, so I always say my outfit is provided by Latida. You're looking at it and it doesn't look like it's a local outfit. Yes, it is. It is made right here in Ghana. Thank you very much. In the course of the show, by the time we finish, I'll let you have the number so that you can contact them and get a good one for yourself. So as I announced, we are looking at the Kumasi prisons revolt. You've heard about it. Apparently, the Kumasi Central Prisons was on fire, and the inmates were running for their lives. Unfortunately, the prison officers were sort of were hanging between, is it the devil and that sea? They couldn't allow them out of the prison. Of course, they wouldn't let them escape. So the guys were there. We are told of tear gas that was thrown to sort of, calm them, because some of them were trying to escape. What was the result of that? We are told some died, some were injured and are receiving treatment at the hospital. We'll ask the very pertinent questions. As we know now, they are being redistributed to various prisons across the country because authorities admit that the prison is just way too congested. I'll tell you the numbers. How many people were supposed to be in that prison? And for those of you watching on TV, you can see they are crammed in there. And how many are there right now? And we'll ask the questions. Why the congestion? Is it the judges? Is it the prosecutors? Is it the prison officers, or all of us? And we would also look at the power crisis. Dr. Kwabena Donkor, the Minister of Power, has been explaining, regretting, and feeling frustrated and sharing in our concerns. Is that what he's supposed to do, or he's supposed to be giving us timelines as to how he's fixing the problem? Because as we know, people are losing their jobs because of this situation. In fact, it is crippling this economy, worsening the economic situation of the country. And also, we will ask the question, what is J.B. Dankwa's, place in the founding of Ghana? A lot will be said about that today. Flagstaff House. Two of the guys who are seen as accomplished professionals, an academic and the other one a professional in his own right, have left. What is going on? Thank you very much. Nana Akumia is now taking his seat. Nana, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good. Now, so shall we start? I suppose that we should go to the Kumasi prisons first and find out what is happening there. But before we did that, I'm sure all of you are lovers of football, and the Black Stars are doing exceedingly well. People gave up on them. Now, all seem to be coming together, and everybody's excited. But unfortunately, we know the events that transpired, you know, in Equatorial Guinea, and it looks like their life, you know, is under some siege or threat. Just some brief comments about what you feel about what is going on there.
Are you giving me the first option?
Yes. You don't love football, do you?
I do.
All right.
I do. Let me take this opportunity to say good morning to all your viewers. I think that most of us, almost, let me say, over 90% of Ghanaians did not give the Black Stars any chance of reaching the finals of today.
Justifiably so, they were angry.
They were angry after our dismal performance at the World Cup.
Correct. And the focus being money rather than playing.
Rather than playing, we seem not to have given them any chance in this competition, particularly so when the coach himself was also axed, and a new one took over less than a month or 6 weeks before the competition. We were not too sure as to how the team will perform. Again, after we lost our very first match, then we thought that the Doom Sayers now have the upper hand, and therefore they may not proceed beyond the preliminary rounds, but they have performed quite well since then and are now in the finals. My hope is that they will again perform the miracle that they have shown so far, and that they will bring the cup back to Ghana.
Right.
And we would also then be able to write our names as the 5th-time champions of Africa. I wish them well.
Now everybody appears to be optimistic. Nana, are you that optimistic that going into the final will come home with the cup?
Thank you, Samson. Let me wish your listeners a good morning, and my co-panelists, including the venerable Amato Kwame.
The venerable Amato Kwame. Yeah. Right. That's interesting.
I won't reject it at all.
Yes. Now, when the Black Stars started the tournament, it was a slow start. The first match against Senegal, they lost by 2-1. That match was a bit strange because the Black Stars outplayed the Senegalese in the first half, totally outplayed them. And then they crumbled during the second half. So it wasn't a matter of the Senegalese superiority over the Black Stars.
Right.
It was clear that the Black Stars were tired during the second half of the match. I was not panicked because if you saw the preparation of the Black Stars, I think there was a poor decision made by the management to assemble and camp the Black Stars in an European country. About 80% of the players of the Black Stars are based in Europe. And since the World Cup in Brazil, they had been playing in Europe. And towards the last 4 months of the year, Europe is quite cold. So they had been playing under very cold conditions in Europe, and they were coming to play a tournament right on the equator in Africa. And then they chose to go and camp in an European country. Cold climates, playing in the cold climates, camping in the cold climates. So when they suddenly came into the heat, it was clear that they couldn't sustain their strength for the full 90 minutes. And you could see that in the second half, particularly in the last 30 minutes of the game, first game against Senegal. They were
and you should be doing sports commentary.
You could say in the last...
Wrap up briefly.
Yes.
Let's know your optimism level for
in the last 30 minutes, you could see they were struggling. But I was optimistic because I knew that the Senegalese game, they lost because they were tired. And that as the tournament progressed and they got used to the heat once again, they were going to do better. And I'm happy that what I had projected seems to be the case. And after the Senegalese match, they seem to have been doing very well. Okay. And now they are the finals. They would win tomorrow's match by 1-0.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
Are you also predicting a 1-0 against these very good side?
Perhaps a 2-0.
2-0?
Yes. I must say a very good morning to our viewers and our listeners, and especially to the very good people of Ningo Pram.
You are one of those who didn't give them any chance at all.
I'm coming to that point.
You're on them.
But if you've been following me, you realize I've been asking for the humble pie. I must state that I am on record to have said that, in fact, this team shouldn't have taken part in this Nations Cup at all. It should have been disbanded after the World Cup. And I thought that the game against Senegal was proof of how abysmal the team was. However, the team has made me eat the humble pie every day since the second game. It's a pie I think I've come to like, and I wish the team well. I'm hopeful that they have not set us up for a big heartbreak. It would have been an easier heartbreak to take if they went out in the group stages.
So you are still cautious optimism.
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I believe that the Black Stars are moving with a certain vigor. Okay, for the first time in a very long time, I think since the days of Stephen Appiah and the team that went to South Africa, for the first time I'm seeing a Black Stars that appears to be technically disciplined. Some players have stood out for mention. Mubarak Wakaso in the center of the park. Baba has also been extreme. And Free Aqua, they've formed that bedrock. They've shown us that we can't survive after ASEAN has left the team. They've given some kind of stability, and you see that the team is playing technically sound football. I'm happy. I was skeptical about Avram Grant, but well, there are those who say that a Jew is a Jew, always blessed by God.
What I find to be a bit of a contradiction as far as your position is concerned is that you're on record to have said that they are doing this well now because certain cares that may have been on them because the older Black Star, players were not giving their due.
It's a point
has now been lifted because government has given them the monies that that makes them feel okay, and they're praying with them.
A point that I didn't make, a point that was made by Sami Osaikufo and Reverend Osaikofi, but it's a point I agree with. I support it, yes, because you see, we're Africans, and these things do happen. When you offend your father and your father opens his mouth and pronounces certain things, you can go wherever you want to go until you go and beg your father. That's why so many times you see people going to their parents' graves to go and apologize before things sort out or get sorted out for them. I believe that the fact that the old Black Stars,
so you don't believe that what they are doing is an exhibition of sheer scale?
Football goes beyond just skill.
Okay, thank you very much.
There's a luck element in football also.
Maybe take you on this note. What do you think about the sanction that's been FIFA has handed Equatorial Guinea for that rowdy behavior, vandalizing everything and wanting to even somebody's dead, right?
Well, I'm not too sure about that.
We heard about that.
Is it documented?
It's not been confirmed.
I'm not sure about that. But I think I've heard that people were injured. What happened was a disgrace, not just to Equatorial Guinea, but to Africa. And indeed, it undermines that spirit behind football, which is a universal thing. So obviously, it cannot be accepted. And I don't know the level of sanctions FIFA. Is it CAF or FIFA?
CAF. It's CAF. Yeah, it's CAF.
Yes. So it's obvious. This was a country that did not qualify. It was disqualified, rather. And eventually, because of this Ebola scare, they had the courage. I admired that courage that they had. And they messed it all up, So it was a disgrace to football as a universal sport, and then to their country and to Africa and the world. But with regards to tomorrow, let's hope and pray that we bring the cup after 30-something years. Is it 33 or so?
Yes, of drought. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So that's all one can say. When they come back, we'll do some other issues.
Right.
And the reason why we're going to win is that one Pele lost in Senegal. There are two Peles and two are used now.
I've been hearing some very voodoo analysis about why the Black Stars must win at all costs tomorrow. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, I'll go straight to the phone lines and then speak to Mark Woyongo, who is the Interior Minister, as we start the discussion on the Kumasi prison revolt. One person is dead, 5 others injured. Well, there are some reports that suggest that you have more than one death in that instance. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Oyongo.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners.
Great. Now, I have asked the question, is a prisoner not just justified if that prisoner has been charged with a misdemeanor, which if he had been convicted, he would serve probably 6 months in jail, and has been on remand for 3 years or more? When a situation like this occurs and that prisoner wants to escape, I mean, is that prisoner not justified? We are aware that the Kumasi Central Prisons is supposed to build to carry about 600 prisoners. As we speak, it is carrying over 2,000 prisoners. Same with, you know, the maximum prison, which was built to carry this 700 or so, and is now carrying about 3,000. What is going on?
Well, that is why the ministry is agitating for the reforms of sentencing policy, because as the law stands now, there is no provision for non-custodial sentencing. And that is why somebody steals a bunch of banana and he is put in prison for 3 months. Meanwhile, that person could have been sent to, say, one of the municipal or metropolitan assemblies to do manual work for about a week and be allowed to go. Okay. That is why we have so much congestion in our prisons. People are thrown into the prisons or on remand needlessly. And I think that we should all get involved in seeing to it that this non-custodial sentencing law is passed quickly and we start implementing it. It will go a long way to help decongest our prisons.
Yes, long overdue non-custodial sentencing, and I think that's your pet project. Is a very good one. But let's deal with this. Let's get some brief update on what is happening as far as the Kumasi prison situation is concerned. And then you tell us, before you go, how exactly and when should we expect the non-custodial sentencing policy to be part of our criminal jurisprudence?
Well, the Kumasi prison incident is supposed to have been sucked up by fire. That was the information I gathered. But the prison director is in Kumasi. Fire service, they are also there. They are putting a report together, and I'm hoping that by early next week we'll get a comprehensive report as to the cause of the fire and then the other aspects of the disturbances there. But like you rightly said, there are over 2,000 prisoners in the Kumasi prison.
Which was built for 600.
It's built for 600. And of course, looking at the numbers, there will be pressure on the facilities there. And there will be a recipe for discontent, and I'm not surprised about what happened. But what we're doing now is to distribute them to prisons in Ashanti, and then Akafo, and then in Sawam.
Did you have to wait for this incident?
Well, we did not have to wait for this incident, but we were working around the clock to expand some of these prisons to be able to take in more. Whilst we wait for the non-custodial thing. But I think you are right. We didn't have to wait for so long a time.
Okay. Now tell us about the non-custodial sentencing policy that you have been campaigning for. Where are we with it, and when are we likely to have it become part of our system?
You know, about 2 months ago, we had this forum at Jimpa, and we brought together some lawyers, the private sector, and other groups to fashion out, you know, or to review law so that they will make provision for non-custodial sentencing. They have submitted their reports to the ministry. We have looked at it. We've passed it on to the Attorney General's Department for fine-tuning. When it's fine-tuned and returned to us, we'll take it to Cabinet for approval, and then onward to Parliament for the final approval.
Okay, so what are the timelines? Do you have any?
Well, I cannot give timelines, but I'm hoping that by end of year, we should be able to get this thing through Parliament, because there are so many bills in Parliament which we need to attend to. But I hope we will give this one a priority. This one and the Immigration Service Bill, which will now make provision for our immigration officers to carry weapons.
I suppose that, Mr. Minister, you will appreciate that this will be a huge legacy for you and the government if you're able to accomplish it. You should have some timelines that you're working with.
No, we think that by end of year we should be able to get this thing through. It's just that I don't want to be too optimistic.
I see. All right. Thank you very much. We understand you are very busy this morning. Of course, you are the one hosting your colleagues and others who are attending that funeral. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, and have a good day.
You're most welcome. Mark Woyongo is the Interior Minister. And I'll start from this point. I'll start with Abdul Malik. What do you say about this situation? What do you say about it? And I asked him that question too about the maximum, prison that we have in this country, which was built to take 700 prisoners. And as we speak, it takes in excess of 3,000 prisoners.
Well, the usual story about Ghana. Nothing new here. Perhaps, maybe the situation, the fire outbreak in a particular penal station, Kumasi prisons, and the circumstances surrounding it and what happened. It's something new to talk about. But I know there have been earlier incidents. But congestion in our prisons is an old story. Old story. The advocacy for doing non-custodial sentences, an old story. The need to do legislative reforms relative to our penal system, old story. And years, okay, many years. I recall I was in Kufrudra prisons. I was there for 19 good months. The cell in which I was supposed to take about 14 people, but we were about 46. And this was not peculiar to Kufrudra prisons. It cut across all the prisons. So I remember the PNDC setting up a committee led by then the Minister of Interior, Johnny Hansen, the late, may he rest in peace, was a good friend of mine, to tour the prisons and to seek to decongest people who were on remand in their hundreds, those on murder trials who takes very long time. You are a lawyer, in their hundreds. Then the political elements like us stood there in our hundreds. We're all being congregated into all these places. And it's across. It's an old story. Let me repeat. We had interrogated this matter over and over again. Now, here we are. We don't do anything about it. We just like talking. So we talk, then there's a crisis in a particular station. And then perhaps people think that that could be the trigger for us to pursue the good ideas, the fine ideas that we've been talking about for years. Sometimes you ask yourself, aren't we better than this? As a nation, aren't we? What is it that sows the seeds of inertia or non-action in spite of the fine ideas that we articulate almost every day? What is it? Now I don't know. I don't know how many people got injured. I haven't been to Kumasi prison before. Fortunately, I haven't been locked up there before. I know other prisons.
Okay.
So I don't know the geography, the structure. So I'm not too sure, even if internally they had firefighting equipment for the first stage.
So for those of you who have the benefits of the television, that's the Kumasi Central prisons that we're showing to you now. And you see the prisoners. That's exactly how the situation is where they are. It's not as if they have gathered together at one point.
Yes, I don't even know whether, as even the other maybe it's not going to be a lesson, but did they have even the initial firefighting capacity? Okay, before you can call in the fire service, knowing that you put human beings, whether they are criminals or not, is immaterial. They are entitled to certain rights. So I don't know. We have to check. Now they are going to set up a committee, I'm sure, and they will come and tell you that, okay, now let's look at all the prisons, whether there's a first, stop in terms of firefighting.
Right.
Even the prison officers, whether they are trained to do something about the first action before you call in the fire service, or whether the fire service should have a certain connection in terms of integration with the prison service. All these things we are now going to sit down and start talking again. Whether we would operationalize these ideas or not is another matter. So to be honest with you, it's so frustrating sometimes, that when we wait till the thing, it's like these are markets which always catch fire. It's the same thing. We've been talking and talking and talking how markets should be situated, what infrastructure should be in the market, and all those things. We talk about those things. We're even to put the water, is it the fire hydrants?
Yes,
Thank you. We talk too much. We're a nation of talkatives. We do nothing to cure the mischief that we actually sometimes intelligently identify. So, yeah, I'm told that because records are bent, there was a new situation where people who are on the verge of being released cannot be released.
Yes. They
are challenged. The officers are challenged by law. You have to go through some procedures to release people, or you might even release the wrong guys. It's amazing, Ghana. We're better than this.
It's amazing. In fact, it's heart-rending. Now, when you heard that, and I understand that the officers were in a very difficult situation. When you heard that they were throwing tear gas, what immediately came to your mind? Because we understand that some of them suffer asthma. They're asthmatic.
Sure, Samson, I think that this is a very humanitarian issue. And one thing I've always held is the view that when it comes to prisoners, any one of us is just one moment of madness or one moment of victimization away from being a prisoner. Okay, it can happen to any of us, and we can find ourselves there.
One moment of being accused of rape or defilement, it's non-bailable. You find yourself
there. And so it's a matter that we must all take very seriously. And looking at the situation in which they live, I had the opportunity to listen to Kolkese, who spent about 30 days, or either 30 or 60 days in there,
right,
the Kumasi prisons, and the things he said about the Kumasi prisons, it didn't come too much of a surprise to me that this situation happened there. I think that we have come to that place.
Almost everybody who's been to that place comes to tell us these stories. So
and I think that it's like you rightly pointed out to the Minister for Interior, Honorable Mark Oyongo. This is something which he started championing as soon as he came in there. I believe, like Kweku said, that it's being repeated over the years. But it appears to me that you have a minister now who has a certain passion and wants to leave this as his legacy. I'm hopeful that he will succeed in it. And that by end of year, we have a proper review of our custodial laws. Because it makes absolutely no sense. I believe, I don't have the evidence to adduce to show, but I believe that if we review our laws and it's going to be retroactive, I don't know if it will be retroactive to affect those who are already in there for the kinds of offenses that we will now make non-custodial.
From a constitutional point of view, it cannot be
retroactive.
Yeah,
exactly.
It has to be prospective.
But I believe that if we look at the numbers in our prisons today, you'd realize that close to half of them, if not more, could possibly be there for offenses that, one, they should not be in custody for, or two, they necessarily, some of them have not even had their cases tried yet.
That's the point.
You understand me? And so you have the Justice for All program, which tried to decongest the prisons, but it can only do so much. And so I think that when we have a potpourri of solutions, non-custodial sentencing, the Justice for All program being accelerated also to reach more of these inmates, and then I think that we must begin to look at here again, because of my bias for ICT, I wonder how we can say that records in 2015, because of a fire outbreak in the Kumasi Central prisons, records of those who were supposed to be released, we cannot find them because they've been bent. And so we now have to, this is supposed to be digital. the U.S. prison service, when you sit here in Ghana and you enter the first name, the Bureau of Prisons, when you enter the first name and the last name, even if you don't have the date of birth of anybody who's been tried or who's been sent to any of the U.S. prisons, here in Ghana, it's open information. You can find out what prison the person is, what prison number has been assigned to the person. We must begin to look at, and I know that that's something which I've had a discussion with the Deputy Minister for Interior, Council, what's his name, the Deputy Minister, James Agalga. And let me use this opportunity to say that we are with him in spirit as he buries his mother today. He's shared that passion, that there's the need for us to computerize our record system. Because with that, some of these unfortunate systems, it means that somebody who's supposed to have been released maybe by end of month could end up being there till June, until they're able to do a back trace of all the documentation and all of that. I believe that it is extremely important that we give priority. And I urge Parliament that when the bill comes through Cabinet to Parliament, it should be treated under a certificate of urgency. And let us pass this, because it just makes no sense that our prisons are in this state, in this country. You know, Ankafo has tried to come in to do some decongestion, but still, it just doesn't solve the problem.
Just a quick one.
Right.
Sorry, it's a rude one. You know, when you look at the picture, it involves the police, the prisons, and the courts. It's a very triangular thing. So whatever reforms, whatever legislation and things we are looking at, we should be looking at these three institutions. They put together created the situation in which we find ourselves in.
And something, sorry, you asked a question about tear gas. I think that it's extremely important that we also look at the training that's given to our prison officers. You know that in this country, the military doesn't have crowd control training. It's a police. And that's why many times when the military has been asked to get involved with crowd control, you have some ugly scenario. The police has training for crowd control. We must begin to give that kind of training also to our prison officers, because that's a crowd. 3,000 people is a crowd. And if you're throwing tear gas into the kind of
who threw the tear gas? Was it the prison officers or the police?
We understand that it is whichever security that was called to rescue the situation that was thrown the tear gas.
Because we must be mindful of how we throw tear gas.
Sure. Because the police was called and the closed was also
closed area. In such a closed area, we see the pictures. For any officer to approve the use of tear gas, even in such an area as big as Accra Sports Stadium was, we lost 126 people.
Good one.
You understand me? So imagine how the possible loss of life if we hadn't been fortunate in such a cramped area to throw in tear gas. Even if you take away the asthmatic, crowd control is an art, and it must be mastered by our officers.
One of United States of America's longest serving Supreme Court justices, Justice Hugo Black, said, "There can be no equal justice where the kind of trial a man gets depends on the amount of money he has." That's the attitude some people have about our justice system. That most of the people who are in there and on remand are there because they can't afford it. Nana, from the way I look at it, it sounds even more criminal on the part of the state that a place where you are supposed to hold 600 is holding in excess of 2,000. And these are people, about half of whom will be on remand. Article 19 says they are presumed innocent until proven guilty or they have admitted their guilt.
Well, thank you, Samson. A lot has been said by Kweku and my
He's forgotten my name.
Yes.
Please God.
Sam, sorry?
Mr. Elevation.
Yes, that's what I wanted to avoid that.
Okay. Extremely mischievous.
So a lot, they've said a lot. You talked to the minister, he's also said a lot. Samson, at the end of the day, all the views that have been canvassed by the minister, by Kweku, by Sam, they've been canvassed over a long period. We've had the commissioners of SHRAG going to the prisons, issuing reports, ministers of interior going to the prisons, issuing reports. All of them are there. What it takes is the will to do the things that we have all agreed have to be done. There's a new minister, he's pledged that he's going to provide that will to do the things that all of us have said over the period have to be done. So let's give him the support and hope that he's able to do it. As for the talking, all of this, we've talked about it before. We've seen all the pictures. And, you know, we talk about it, then he goes to sleep, then we wait until there's an incident like this, then it brings it up again. And we talked about it, and then it goes to sleep. And I remember when, as recently as the Supreme Court petition, when some people went to prison for a month and weeks and so on, the issue of prison conditions came up, became a big topic. Mm-hmm. And then
one of them is still actually on a campaign of helping the prisons. That's
yes.
Atubiga.
Yes. So the will to do it is what has been lacking. If the minister says he wants to do it now, let's hope that he'll be able to do it. The institutions are there to put in.
Now, in this situation, we are told that some of the prisoners actually had access to telephones and spoke to a radio station, Fox FM, a week before this happened, and indicated that they were going to. They indicated the agitation of the frustration of the situation, and sought to even suggest that some of them should be redistributed because they were suffocating. We didn't pick those signals. We waited until the fire.
So it's the same failure of the system, that is human beings who work the system. So those human beings who have the opportunity and the position to work the system, let them be up and do it. And let's hope that we can get some change.
You're expecting that if a committee does its work, some people will have to take the responsibility, as in suffer some sanctions for what's went on, and at least for the life that's been lost?
Well, if there are negligence in the immediate case, and those issues of negligence cannot be excused, of course, the necessary punishments would have to be done. I'm sure if you went into the prison service regulations, you would find every law that you can get anywhere in the world is there. It's the same coming back to taking the proper executive action. So if those people can be shown to have breached the basic prison regulations, they have to be dealt with. But the longer term, the conditions in our prisons, the situation regarding the custodial regime that we have in this country, even the power to detain people for 48 hours is abused in a lot of cases. Somebody gets you slammed in there, you stay in there for 48 hours minimum, and then you are supposed to go to court and so on. Even the government of Ghana breaches that 48-hour rule. I remember in one recent case,
people are deliberately picked up on Friday.
On Friday, and then put in there. And even when the 48 hours are up, even the government, I think one recent case, the government couldn't take the person to court after the 48 hours to get. And so it's a matter of just the authorities invested with the functions sitting down and saying, we are going to do this thing. This is how we are going to do it. This is the time period. And then all of us will monitor and support them to do it. Because we've talked about it. We all know what has to be done.
Right. Don't you think that even though the non-custodial sentencing thing is long overdue, it's a very good idea, we may have difficulties in implementing it because we have very poor address systems, the social welfare, which plays a pivotal role in such situations, is not, you know, as we know, is not well equipped, well resourced. What's your take on how that is going to operate when we know that the systems are just not working?
Thank you. I think that if we decide to implement non-custodial sentences, then we need to put in the proper guidelines and measures that will make it possible for the authorities to backtrack, track those who will be have that privilege to stay in their homes and do whatever service they need to do in the communities if they are so sentenced. One guarantee in the absence of proper addresses will be what pertains in when people are bailed, for example, where somebody else stands surety for the person, so that in the absence of the person, then there is a second person who can be contacted to provide the person. That would be another way out.
Again, but from the way you see the crowd in the prisons, where do you fix the blame, really? The judges, the prosecutors, or the prison officers?
The law.
The law?
Yes, partly, and partly on the judges who have the option to either sentence a person to a fine or to custody.
Or even caution them and let them go.
If the law so, permits, yes. In a lot of cases, even when the option is there to fine a person, the judge will sentence the person to custody, which is one of the reasons why we would have this kind of congestion in our prisons. And so therefore there is a lot also depends on the judges.
But there's the other aspect though. The person is presented for the first time from police cell to the court for the first time, and the police say, we're investigating him, so we want the court to remand the person. And the court, sanctions the remand. That's the first and the last time the person ever shows up in the court. It doesn't show up in the court again. We know of the Francis Ejari story.
Yeah.
He was in prison for, 14 or 12 years on remand until my very good friend and mate, Francis Sosu, did a pro bono matter for him and got him out of jail.
I think in that sense, the courts seem to overindulge the prosecuting authorities.
Okay.
Because if the prosecutors haven't gathered their facts enough, and if the offense is a billable one,
right,
then I don't see the reason why they should continue to remand the person in custody in order to allow the investigators to do their work. And at any rate, I wonder how or to what extent, if the person is bailed, would be able to influence the investigations. Most often is because the investigators, either they haven't got the time to attend to the issue, or they don't have anything else to investigate. And they use that process as a means of punishing the person.
In a normal system, most of them, they are simply overwhelmed and unable to do any work. So elsewhere where they would have picked up the accused person upon the investigation, here you are picked and put behind before the investigation starts.
Yes.
You are picked on the basis of allegations.
Of allegations. So
right.
that is a challenge for our system, which needs to be looked at. But Samson, if you look at the picture that we have seen on the screen, you would see that the inmates have been led into the inner perimeter of the prison compound.
Okay.
They are not in their individual cells. The numbers, as we have seen here, are overwhelming.
That's correct.
But it's even worse if you go into the cells where they are lumped together and people hardly find space in order to even sleep.
Right.
And where they sleep is on the bare floor with maybe a blanket or something.
Those who are being sent to remand are put together with those who are convicted
and things
and
like
they
that.
come up rather learning other skills. Very interesting.
Yeah. Again, let me say that it is the housekeeping culture in the prisons and in many other institutions like this, which might also be a contributing factor to the fire. If you go into the kitchen where the fire is supposed to have started, you would find out that they probably are using firewood, and splinters you would find all around the place. In that case, when a fire starts, you can be sure that it will spread very fast within a short period of time. Here we can't find money to extend the prisons, and if one suggests that they should modernize the cooking apparatus that they have in the kitchens, I don't know how effective that suggestion will be. But as we are trying, as a nation, trying to look at reforms in the prison, I think all these aspects should be looked at together so that we may have better prisons, because nobody knows when you would find yourself there.
Great. You're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. And just a little fact about even the Nsawan prisons, where I just informed you that it was built for 700 prisoners. And as we speak, the last information that we had, statistics we had on them, they were keeping over 3 1,000. A cell for 13 persons has over 40 suspects. Over 50% of the prison population is on remand. I mean, people who are supposed to be presumed innocent and have not been tried. 50%, over 50%. That is what they are doing there. That is a very unfortunate situation. I belong to a group of young lawyers who are providing pro bono services to try and get some of those who are on, misdemeanor charges out of the place. And the last list we had for just 2 months ago, for in Sawam alone, we're giving about 400 prisoners, and you will marvel to find that out of that number, the majority, some who have spent over a year, if they were convicted, they would have spent maybe 3 months, 1 month, or just 6 months in prison. That's how disheartening it is. Your comments and your views are welcome. 1422. 1422, that's the text line. You can also send them to 1760. 1760. The show is coming to you live from the Multi TV studios. This is your Joy News channel, and on Joy 99.7 FM in Kumasi is on Love 99.5, and we are all on over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. You're also listening to us all over the globe, either on TuneIn Radio or myjoyonline.com or multitvworld/streams.